The Shark Deck.
I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. All right, we've got that big Bert Kreischer special coming out on March 14th. So he's been making the rounds, and the Hollywood Reporter did that big fluff piece with him a couple weeks back. Bert said, I take my shirt off naturally. I'm really just not a big fan of shirts. I remember I went to a big meeting in Hollywood, and I had to wear an effing collared shirt, which is the worst. We got done, and I walked out and ripped my shirt off immediately. I was still in the CBS lot, and I didn't realize the producer was walking out behind me and saw me take my shirt off. He was like, dude's the real deal. He does it for real. The Hollywood Reporter asked Bert Kreischer, do you feel like Hollywood knows what to do with you? Bert said, no, I don't think they have. But I also don't think it's their fault. Listen, actors are so much better than comics in almost every respect. Like, they don't mind waiting around. They don't mind getting a line read. They don't mind listening to a director. It's like they really love the collaboration. Comics are like, no, I know what makes me funny. This is what I do. And I know I felt that way, especially when you go up on stage and make people laugh every night. You feel like, I know what my recipe is. So it's hard for us to fit in that mold. I certainly had a hard time sitting in a trailer, and a call time, like, hey, we're not going to need you until 2. I start going, how come I can't get there earlier and help? When we make our thing, we're the producers, the directors, the writers, the actors, so it was a learning curve for me. I will say the people I worked with at Legendary on the Machine were so much fun to work with. I said to my agents and managers, I had a blast. If they're going to be like this, line me up for movies for the rest of my life. Brian Regan has some advice for people starting out in comedy. He says, surf where there's waves. I always say, try to make yourself laugh. When you're on stage, you can go in the wrong direction if you're trying to figure out what other people laugh at. You should be on stage saying what you would laugh at. Pretend you're sitting out in the audience and make yourself laugh. And if there's people out there who agree with you, that's great. But if you're up there just trying to figure out what other people laugh at, to me, that's kind of boring. It's more interesting to listen to stuff that comes from inside people. And if your set starts feeling like it's going off the rails, remember, nothing's perfect. If it was, there'd be no challenge. I'm going to use a metaphor. Every once in a while, you're out there on your surfboard looking back and no waves are coming, and you can't surf if there's no waves. You just try to be in the moment. You make light of the fact it's not going great. You don't want to go too far in that direction, either because then your audience will lose faith in you if they feel like you don't have faith in yourself. So sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do the best you can with what you have. Kevin Hart said, for people to act like comedy isn't important or to not have a high level of understanding for the need of comedy, it's ridiculous. We need it. The world can be dark at times. There's a heavy weight that a lot of people have on their backs, on their shoulders, and sometimes the weight is lifted with a refreshing laugh. So those that can provide it or give a service to provide it, we're just needed. We're important. So I will never stray away from the world of comedy because I know how important laughter is. It really does heal. I saved this one from during the week. Joe Rogan was on his podcast, which is called The Joe Rogan Experience. Rogan argued that construction workers should be selected based on merit, not race, and criticized Pete Buttigieg. He said, do you know that Mayor Pete gave a speech the other day on how there's too many white people working in construction sites? Where those construction sites are set up in these communities where the people in the community can benefit from it, which shows a profound lack of understanding of skilled labor. Because if you're talking about people that are carpenters, people that are plumbers, and people that are electricians, and people that are framers and roofers, like, that's skilled labor. Like, you have to hire people that are really good at that, and if they don't exist in that community, you have to hire them from outside that community. That's why those unions are important. And that's why it's important that, look, if you see what happens when you have unskilled labor and unskilled people working on buildings, you have effing disasters. The fact that Pete talked about that and he didn't talk about the derailment, this derailment is a colossal failure on the part of the transportation department. CLT Tampa caught up with Jim Gaffigan, who said, you want all the jokes to be as ripe as they can be, but you know, with 5 kids and the chaos of life, every special's been kind of a unique challenge. They asked Jim about his son Jack trying his hand in stand-up comedy, and Jim said, I want him to get good grades and all that. Stand-up is not the real world. I want him to know it's stand-up. You peak at night. Stand-up in the entertainment industry in general is so weird. You have to have the appetite for rejection, so I don't want to only show him the pretty sides of the industry. Jim talked about his TV show that came to an end only because Jim wanted to spend more time with his kids. He described the show as a bit irresponsible to do with so many kids around. He said there's the element of how it's one thing to be autobiographical in a show, but if you're doing an autobiographical thing about your relationship, meaning a husband and wife or people with boyfriends and girlfriends, it gets a little complicated. And we're playing characters with our names, so that kind of complicated it. And that you're playing yourself and the woman playing your wife kind of put a restriction on how ridiculous the show can get, if that makes sense. You kind of paint yourself in a corner. Stand-up really gives me such a fulfilling experience on the comedy end that when it comes to acting, I usually prefer to do something a little more dramatic or maybe with a little deeper substance. Ricky Gervais has revealed when his next stand-up special will come to Netflix. You got a couple minutes here. He said 2024. This one is titled Ricky Gervais Armageddon. Ricky tweeted, loads of people couldn't get tickets asking me if Armageddon will be on Netflix. The answer is yes. I will continue touring Armageddon throughout 2023, and then it will stream on Netflix around the world in 2024. Ricky's Humanity came out in 2018, Supernature in 2022. Kate Berlant spoke with The New Yorker. They asked her how she began to find her comedic language. Kate said, I used to monologue into my photo booth app, trying to find material to free associate. I started doing an open mic in the East Village that wasn't just a stand-up show, it was poetry and music, and there'd be maybe 4 comedians in 3 hours. That's when I started doing the stream of consciousness stuff, because I felt like the expectation was just more abstract there. It wasn't this thing people were waiting for a joke, but I would get a big reaction. I think it was just a relief in those environments to have someone be funny, because it was kind of serious, strange place. I was also doing that at comedy shows, and it wasn't like I was bombing, but I'd come off stage and people would be like, what the hell was that? They asked Kate Berlant about how she'll improvise on stage, and she says, I always know where to start. You have an opening, and you have an ending. The goal is always kind of go off track. That'd be the best part. I thought of it more as improvising around the spine that was there if I needed to go back to it. Ahead of shooting my FX special Cinnamon in the Wind, I went to Edinburgh and did a whole month of shows. That's when I was really like, I'd love to have more written. I remember feeling that. That's what's really liberating about this show is that I know what's going to happen. I know what words are going to come out of my mouth, and what's been remarkable is within that structure, there's a lot of spaciousness. Repetition inevitably breeds difference, of course, so these little shifts or tiny changes feel really significant. I love doing it. I'm going to slip into such a depression when it's over. RedandBlack.com spoke to Dimitri Martin, who was raised in Toms River, New Jersey. I did not know that. He studied law in New York before pursuing comedy. Dimitri was accepted in a Harvard Law School, but he chose to attend NYU, then withdrew from NYU to pursue comedy. He said, I went to law school in New York. I was suddenly near these comedy clubs, and I thought, I got to try that before I leave New York, just to say I tried it. For comedy, it was freedom from the linear and quantitative world of academics. He said, I'd go for whatever. Comedy was kind of a nice surprise feeling because it felt free. Once I took the leap into stand-up, I thought, what else can I do? I know I'm never going to play guitar like Jimi Hendrix. I'll never paint like Matisse. I understand that. I'm not an idiot. I know what my certain limitations are, but knowing that has made it really enjoyable to pursue these things and just offer the best I can offer. And that is your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello, I am Mark Francis, host of Palace Intrigue, the podcast that delves into the daily drama of the British royal family. These short daily episodes cover the latest news and scandals involving the likes of Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Kate Middleton, King Charles, and the rest. From backroom sources to public controversies, we've got you covered. Whether you're a long-time fan or just curious about the royals, Palace Intrigue is the perfect podcast for you. So join us as we explore the lives, legacies, and dramas of the British monarchy. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of Palace Intrigue.